My hat! So in order to do our modifications, I have to get into the differential so that I can install this HR Differential Locker Spool. And I'm only doing this to the rear. And the reason why I'm doing it to the rear is I want to lock these two just to have better traction. With a four-wheel drive vehicle, you're generally getting traction to two wheels at the same time. It's a front one and a rear one. So here, I'm not sure if you can, yeah, you can see the rear spinning. But if I were to hold this, I'll get traction from one wheel to the other. That's generally the way it works. So now, by locking this, I will always have traction to three wheels. It'll be these two, and then either left or right, depending on the terrain. But in order to get to here, I have to remove the engine. Now, normally, you want to clean the truck a little more. I ran the truck, and I decided, let me just do the mods and I'll run them again. Although the running videos are not going to be in order once I post them. But here we go. So the motor has to come out. That's the downside. But we'll make it work. At least the motor is not that difficult to remove. You have these 4 screws down here. I'm going to leave the tuned pipe. Now, when you're doing this, I'm going to run it again, so I'm not going to go into detailed cleaning. But when you're doing this, this is when you should consider just cleaning everything. It may wipe a few things down. But again, I will be running this truck shortly after. This truck actually turned out to be very fun. I enjoyed it. It reminded me of the old nitro days. When I was younger and I had a nitro car. They're just cool little cars. Some of you are probably thinking, what do you mean little? It's a Tmaxx. Alright, fair enough. Alright, so here, try to remove as little as possible. I'm going to remove the air filter. And I need to remove the throttle. Now, for the throttle, I'm just going to grab this and push out. Probably out. Let's see, I want to go down actually. Trying not to stick my head into the camera. But I thought I had it. There we go. Alright, so that is set. And engine is almost out. The fuel hose, that'll help. And there is the engine, and I have the wiring harness, which I will be modifying. This, I'm just going to get rid of. Don't need it, don't want it. This is what I will be modifying. The engine, something you want to wipe down clean. Make sure when you remove it, nothing gets in through the exhaust. But there it is, it's off to the side. Alright, good. A bit of debris. I was running this in grass just in case you couldn't tell. Great. Now at this point, I have to remove the bulkhead in order to free up the differential. This is why one of the reasons why I had to remove the engine. The other thing too is I will be replacing the shocks. But there are 4 screws here. If you followed my teardown video, those 4 screws have to come out. And just going to be removing them. Part of me wants to just replace these with hex screws. I may end up doing that. So this particular model, I'm not sure if the new ones, the current ones, if they still use these screws. I hope they have hex screws instead. Hex screws are just much better screws than Phillips screws. And like I mentioned in the video, invest in quality tools. Sometimes it's worth spending the extra money on just buying a quality tool. You will ruin less screw heads that way, which means you'll also run less tools. Now keep in mind, sometimes you can buy, say, a driver for $1, $2. That's fine, that works. 50 cents. I have no idea what cheap, inexpensive drivers cost. The problem is you're going to damage the tool, and you're going to damage a lot of screws, and you're going to waste a lot of time fixing that. My opinion, it's not worth it. If you can pay, say, maybe $6, $10 for a high quality driver, these weren't even that price. They were pretty inexpensive. Well, I bought the large kit, that's why. I can't remember how much, maybe $50 for a 20-something set. But the point is that, let's just say there's no warranty. It doesn't cover warranty. If you take into consideration the time you're going to save not stripping screws, not going to the store and buying another tool, so let's just say this tool will last you a full year versus the other one will last you 2 months, I would rather do that, and tools are going to last you more than a year, especially if you take care of them, and if you're using the correct driver on the correct screw. So these screws here, they take a Phillips 2. So it's a Phillips number 2 driver. If you were to use a 1, you will be stripping the heads a lot faster than you would if you were using the correct driver. So keep that in mind. When it comes to Phillips screwdrivers, they are not all the same. There are different sizes, measurements. Some of them have a different angle on the tip, pitch, etc. All right, that is it. So this here, just set off to the side. That works for now. And man, realize how much junk was in here. Let me move the fuel line over here just so I don't get anything in there. Oh man, there's a lot of stuff over here. Great, I should have made a cleaning video instead. So at this point, for the bulkheads here in the rear, I can go ahead and remove the bumpers. The other thing too is I need to remove the shock tower. Shock tower will be coming off, and I will be removing these 4 screws here. So let me start with the 4 screws on the bottom. You can use a stubby if you want. I prefer the longer handle. To be honest, I prefer the short shaft with the longer handle. I've not been able to find one that I like for Phillips, but for flatheads, they make them. But why? I have no idea. So let's see. Here we go. I have 2 more to go. This one and the last one. Oh, there we go. Now it's the last one. This will remove this skid plate in the back as well. And just place that near. I'm going to have to clean the table. All right, let's try to keep that debris over here. All right. One of the things too is make sure you keep the surface area clean when you open this up, because you don't want this to go inside. Alright, so now for the bulkhead. We do have to split the bulkhead. That means I will be removing this here. Alright. And always try to place screws in a way that you will remember where they go. You can use a little piece of cardboard, a little piece of tape. So if you use a piece of tape, just lay the strip, put the screws, tape over, and then just write over the tape where they go to. So for example, shock tower to bulkhead. That would be an example. All right, good. Now we need to remove these shafts. So if you look at the bottom of the bulkhead, now I believe that's a number 2 driver. There's a little indentation right in here. Right now it's kind of dirty. That's how you access the screw for the shaft. So right now, let's see. There it is. It is at the other end. That is the correct one. All right, I shall start backing this out. And I'm just going to use the driver and try to push it out. Just try to go underneath the threads. Don't go on the threads, you can damage them. All right, that is clean. Perfect. So now this can just be pulled. To be honest, I could have just done it with the bulkhead this way. And this is what I want. Now that it's here, I can remove that one. It's much easier to remove it this way. There's also an indentation on this other side, this other bulkhead, that I could have used, but I find it easier to just move it out this way. All right. And I'll place that here. All right. And that will now come out. There we go. Right, now I have the differential out. And one of the things, notice the orientation. This round part, if I'm pointing this away from me, it's going to go to my right. That is important. If you mount it the other way, because this will rotate, you will have 2 wheels going one direction, say forward, and 2 wheels going the opposite direction, reverse. Right now I'm just trying to clean this debris. And let's go ahead and get rid of some of this here. Alright, so now that this is clean, I can open up the differential. So for the differential, you will have to remove this. I am going through the steps, most of the steps, maybe all the steps, but you can watch this in my teardown videos for the Tmaxx. Right, now this will just, you can twist to help you get it off. That is it. All right. And now, all you have is 2 screws. You actually only have 2 screws in the back. In the front, that collar holds the differential together. And I'm going to place this here. I'm going to place this over here. And this should just open up. There it is. That feels good. And there, pushed it out. And that is a differential, so we have to remove the gear. And let's go ahead and start by opening. Now that is new grease. I had greased it previously during those teardown videos, but now I'm going to open this up. So the HR locking spool or locker spool is SRVO 1025. It's not really focusing, but there it is, SRVO 1025. So let's see, you get a spool, you get new hardware, and you get a sticker that says 4x4. We'll save that for another time. Right now, let me just open up the hardware. And those look like they will be the new screws to hold the ring gear. Well, the differential gear. Now for this one, you need, I believe, a number 1. Let me just check. I actually need to use a different rag. I don't want to mix these up, so give me a moment. Alright, let's use this one. So this one, the reason why it has those spots, I've used it to clean stuff with alcohol, but at least it doesn't have a bunch of grass and things. Alright, here it is. Alright. And one of the reasons why I'm also replacing this is the gears inside. I was going to replace them anyway, but I thought, why do it? And the reason why is they're not very smooth. There, so you can hear that grinding noise. That's not normal. So what ends up happening there is your truck doesn't run. There isn't the correct power distribution because there's no traction to the rear, so the front tires will end up just having all the traction. And that's the other reason too. So if your Tmaxx makes that sound, and you can figure that out with the differential on, you just have to hold 2 wheels, say the 2 fronts, and then just hold one of the rear wheels and then spin the other one. And it should want to pull the truck whatever direction you are spinning the tire, because it should want to send power to the front ones. But if it doesn't, and you just hear that clicking sound, differential is probably bad. And then you do it to the other side. If the other side, so you have to look at the shafts as well. So when you do that, if you hear that clicking sound, you have to see if it's the shaft going to the front wheels that seems to be jumping or turning. If both shafts are turning, but the front one's the one that seems to be skipping, it's probably going to be your front differential. If it's the rear, it's going to be your rear differential. So do the same thing to the front and the rear wheels. Set, say, the 2 fronts down on the ground, hold one of the rears, and then try spinning the other tire. And then switch. Put the rear tires on the ground and then do it to the front. So this one here was probably, as I've mentioned before, I bought this truck used, and one of the things is it was probably run in the water, because you can see how the differential is completely rusted in the rear. So the gears that's why they're skipping. So let me just go ahead and show you what I have found. One of the things that I have found is a rusty gear right here. So this part of the shaft. And like I said, I already knew I had to replace this. Instead of getting the gears, I decided to just get the locking spool. Alright, I'll do a thorough cleaning of this later. Keep using the wrong rag. We'll place it there. And now let's analyze this over here inside. This gear is fine. So we should be able to just push. Alright, just use my driver. There we go. The other thing too is you do have to service your differentials. I mean, this is so sticky. This is supposed to be black grease, but oh man, that's like mud. Now, for those of you asking, wait a minute, you ran it that way? Yes, I did it on purpose. I was just trying to show in the other videos that you can get one of these old trucks running. But let me wipe some of this dirty stuff off, and hopefully you can see how chewed up this little pinion is. This is really bad. Wow. Man. All right, sorry. Can you see the teeth? They look awful. They are actually rounded off because they've chewed each other up. This one is not that bad. So you can tell the difference between the two on the camera. I mean, this one is destroyed. So that was the other issue too. I didn't have a differential, and you'll be able to see in one of the videos later on, once there isn't much traction because the grass is kind of wet, how it's the front tires that are just spinning, ballooning. But that is it. So if you hear that clicking sound, again, put your truck, and this works with any four-wheel drive vehicle that's a shaft system. So put the vehicle on all four tires, right? Lay it down. So these are the front two, rear two. Put these on the ground. Unless you have somebody that can hold them for you, that works as well. And then spin one of these tires while holding the other one fixed. If you hear a clicking sound, like something skipping, it's going to be one of your differentials. It could be both, but it's one of your differentials. What you have to do is the following. Somehow try to look at the bottom, see where the shafts are, for example, this shaft and this shaft. If both shafts are spinning, that means it's going to be a differential. And the way you can tell is you will feel if it's the rear or the front that is skipping, or both. If for some reason one of the shafts is not spinning, let's just say this one is, but this one is not, it's probably a problem with the shaft. Maybe you didn't put the screw in or something happened. But if you hear a click, it's your gears. Your gears are destroyed. So then you just have to get some new ones. All right, for this here, I have to clean it, and make sure you clean everything. There's a variety of ways you can clean it. You can use some WD-40, just spray it on. That works. It softens up the grease. You can just get some oil. And that'll help as well. You can get some alcohol. Gasoline works. I'm going to have to use a brush or something. Here, let me just clean the teeth. It's actually just sprayed a little bit of WD-40. And I'm reusing this gear. This gear is good. There's nothing wrong with it, except for that gunky grease. You can also use a little brush, but this is almost good. You can just use a brush and do that. So brushes, these are some of your options. You can use a paintbrush, just cut the bristles so they're shorter, and then you can just hold them down here. Actually, this is what I use generally to dust or wipe debris off. But you can just hold them tight like this, and then just try to brush that way. You can find these at any hardware store. You get a steel, plastic, and a brass brush. These are actually pretty good. You can spray some more WD-40. I mean, let's see. The can should really be standing. All right. And you can use the brass one. The brass one's the best one to go with. And the reason why is bristles are stiff on the plastic one, but brass is softer than steel, so you don't have to worry about damaging your teeth. But right now, I've run the brush right through here. Not sure if you can, yeah, you can tell the difference. See, this is still kind of gunky. This is a little cleaner. Well, not sure. In person, you can tell. If I move it sideways, maybe. Well, I'm going to keep doing this. And just brushing and turning as I'm going. So again, you can use a plastic brush. It's just going to take a little longer with a plastic one. Use this one. The steel one, you don't need it, but the steel one will create more. Well, I'll show you. Here it's probably not a big deal, but I'm sure it's working fine. I'm not seeing much damage, or damage I should say. But the steel one can scratch up your surface pretty bad, especially if you have a softer metal. But then again, this is a gear, and gears do use a hardened steel, or at least they should. So yeah, you should be able to get away with the steel one, as I am. And I wish I had another one to compare, but this in the camera you can't really tell, but in person this thing looks clean. The reason why is the clean area, because the shadow makes it look as if there was still something in there, but there isn't. So that is it. So now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray some more WD-40, but just to get any residue or anything that was there. I did not have to spray the back part, but I did. Here it is. All right. Alright, so before I start drilling, I'm just going to compare the bits with the screw, and it looks good. I do not want it to be too large. If I grab a bit that's larger than the head, the screw's just going to go through. So at this point, I'm going to place that here, so hopefully that catches everything. I'm going to hold the gear here just for the camera. Usually I would use press with 2 wooden blocks, hold the gear between the 2 wooden blocks, but it's going through. What if I go backwards? This is how you drill through tables. Alright, well, this is going to take a while, so I'm just going to finish it off camera. And I'm going to be taking this with me. Alright, so it is here. Let's see, so when you're drilling through this is hardened steel, the gear is. So if you don't have any high strength drill bits, you're just going to burn up your bits. So you're going to have to invest on something like that. The other thing too is when you are drilling holes into a gear, or when you're drilling into steel, metals, just metals in general, aluminum's a little softer, but harder metals, you want to make sure that you are drilling slowly. If you drill fast, as you would timber, for example, you're just going to burn up the bit. You're going to take the edge off, so it's not going to be sharp. And you're just going to go through bits, and you're probably never going to finish. And it's going to be more expensive because you're going to have to buy new tools. That's something to keep in mind. The other thing too is if you don't have a press, that's fine. You can use a regular drill. Just don't press too hard on it, because then the drill bit, instead of being perfectly straight, let's just say this was the drill bit, it will start to kind of wobble, and then you can break it. And then, well, you just broke a tool. I'm not really worried about coating it perfectly. I just need some grease there. And then once I install it with the pinion, it'll smear and everything will be even. So now I'm just going to drop this in. sounds like this. No, seems to be fine. Maybe not. I'm not liking these screws. Let me go ahead and take one of them out. 2mm. Alright, so this is something to be careful. I was told this would fit. I'm just entering it on the other side. But I'm finding that these things are rubbing on the case. So I'm going to replace these screws with these smaller ones. You really need countersunk screws. I just don't have any countersunk screws that are this size. But these screws here seem to be pretty good. So they're lower profile. So that's something to keep in mind. The screws that come with the kit are going to be worthless. Alright, I took the differential apart just to see what was going on. The reason why I was binding is because you need shims. So you will need some shims here on this side over here, because this is not perfect. So this would have to be a little longer, so you have to add some shims between here and the bearing, or between the bearing and the housing. And here, let me just press it all the way in. So if you press it all the way in, you close this, and you allow this it will start to bind a little. But if you shim it and keep it to the other side, let me open it up. See, the bearing's not fully set, but let's just say you leave it out a little, just a smidge, not too much. It will rotate freely. No binding. So I really don't recommend this because it doesn't come with the right screws for the Tmaxx. It doesn't come with the shims that you need. So another problem that you have with this differential is if you shim it, now the holes don't line up, so you can't install your shaft. So yeah, HR Racing Locker differential, it's worthless for Tmaxx. But that's my review of it. So don't get it. Just buy the original differential.